Last year, I managed to scrape together a 6-week vacation. It started in late June and went all the way through July. It took a lot of overtime and saving up, but it was gonna be a magical time. I'd bought a new car and was gonna drive state by state to visit friends and family. You know, the aunts and uncles you haven't seen for a decade, the cousins, the childhood friends. I had it all planned out. 5 days before the vacation started, those plans changed. I was coming back from lunch and a sedan blasted through a red light as I crossed the road. It clipped my left side, snapping my knee and shin bone. Did some pretty nasty damage to my left elbow as well. So all my packed bags were abandoned in the hall, and my new car was left to collect pollen dust in the driveway. It took me an entire afternoon just to call everyone and cancel on them, one by one, maybe next year, right? So my magical summer was turned into an involuntary staycation. I live in a townhouse. Great location, about a 10-minute walk off Main Street. The house is split into 3 parts, each one a separate space. I lived on the top floor, 3 rooms and a kitchen. Not much, but spacey. There's an identical setup for the space on the ground floor, but that place hasn't been rented out in 2 years. The townhouse is constructed in a way that the various floors are independent of one another and have their own entrances, making it a sort of apartment complex in a way. There's also a smaller space in the basement. 1 room, 1 kitchen, a bathroom. It was supposed to be used as a temporary space for the landlord's kid, but they found some serious water damage and had to do some work on it. They figured they might as well do some touch-up on the plumbing as well. All this work, of course, coincided with my staycation. So not only was I supposed to stay at home for weeks on end, but I also had to do so to the sound of constant machines. Jackhammers, concrete saws, cars going in and out of the driveway all day long. After just 1 day, I could tell exactly what sound came from what machine. We also have this security system. If the door has been closed more than 10 minutes, it locks up, and you have to input a code to get the warning beep to stop. That warning beep went off at least 2 times every hour. I could hear that goddamned beeping in my nightmares. I tried to make it work. I got some ear protectors and tried to stream some shows with subtitles, but I could still feel the shaking. Temperatures were just south of 100 degrees, but I couldn't open the windows, or the construction sound would just get amplified. So I was stuck inside, in complete and absolute misery, with nothing but this droning machine torture as company for weeks on end. All the while, I could see my packed bags waiting for me by the door with nowhere to go. I could barely move. With some effort, I could make it to the bathroom, kitchen, and then back to bed. I had a friend of mine come by with some groceries about every 3rd day, but most of the time I was on my own. I would count the minutes until the repairman clocked out. That was my only time of day to get some actual rest and to watch something with the sound on. It was one of those nights when I was up rewatching The Sopranos, when I heard yet another car come up the driveway. It was somewhere around 11 p.m. As soon as I heard that grating motor, I got this Pavlovian response to cover my ears. It was just a car, but after living through nothing but construction noises all day, I couldn't bear the thought of the slightest inconvenience in the after hours. I hobbled over to my window, ready to get into a scream fest. If I heard a single bang of a hammer, I'd be filing a noise complaint. I was on edge and, frankly, exhausted. Just standing up, even with a cast, felt like having glass shuffled around inside my broken leg. And the itching. Gotta ignore the itching. But when I got to the window, I saw something I wasn't prepared for. One of the repairmen had brought his private pickup. He'd brought his teenage son along. Together they started unloading what looked to be about 20 pounds of planting soil, a box of candles, and about a dozen of arm-length lead pipes. I was dumbfounded. I'd been readying myself to get into a screaming match, but now I was just confused. They went into the basement in waves, carrying everything inside. Then they just stayed down there for some time, at least 2 hours, maybe more. I watched them as they left. They seemed excited. The son was moving back and forth, making wild gestures, and the dad kept smiling and nodding. When they drove away, they turned up the music, and kept the windows rolled down. They were having a little party of their own. The next day, no one showed up. It was a Wednesday, and they should have been there, but no one came. All the tools were left outside. They were far from done. The driveway was a mess, and there was plenty of work to be done. Still, I couldn't complain about having a quiet afternoon for the first time in literal weeks. I spent the day without my ear protectors, rewatching all the Jurassic Park movies. That night, 2 cars pulled into the driveway, the guy with the pickup from the previous night, and an old mud-colored sedan. 4 people in total, none of which I recognized. 2 guys, 2 women, all of them somewhere in their 40s and 50s. I couldn't see what they brought, but it was entire bags and boxes full of stuff. The only thing I could recognize was a handful of royal blue plastic tarps and rope. They were down there for hours. I hobbled over to my front door to listen to what they were doing, but all I could hear was speech and a little cheer every now and then. At one point, someone exclaimed something and the others laughed. It sounded like they were having a good time. I didn't like it, not one bit. They didn't leave until about 3 in the morning. I heard them get into their cars, laughing all the way. I was tired enough to almost fall asleep standing up at that point, but I decided to do something. I wanted to know what was going on. It took a lot of effort just to convince myself to try. I had my phone with me just in case. A wrong step could send me right back to the emergency room. I got out the front door, hobbled my way to the ground floor, and all the way up the side of the house to the basement entrance. Took me about 15 minutes. The basement had been locked up for the night, but my front door keys could open the lock for both the ground floor and the basement. Perks of having a lazy landlord. The lock clicked open, more stairs. The ceiling light didn't work, but there was a large flashlight right by the entrance. I grabbed it and continued downward. The air was damp with smells, mostly soil but also dust and plastic. The space wasn't supposed to be very large, but they dug out a massive chunk of ground. It didn't take much effort to see that something wasn't right, though. The entire concrete floor had been ripped open. This was probably part of fixing the water damage. They'd covered the raw dirt with blue plastic tarps and then started to fill it with planting soil. Along the edges of the dugout hole were lead pipes. They'd been driven into the ground and had a candle placed atop, like standing torches. 12 of them in total, in a perfect circle. And in the middle of that circle was a safe. It was this massive iron box, like some turn-of-the-century level thing, as tall as a small child. It was balancing in the middle of the room, on top of a flat rock, the only space that hadn't been dug out. The safe seemed brand new, like it had been polished and cleaned. It looked like the crew had started to just dig out the floor, but as soon as they encountered this, they'd excavated it completely. There was a ladder leading down into the hole, but I couldn't use it, not in my condition. I remember just standing there with flashlight in hand, not knowing what would pop up in front of me next. It felt surreal. There were little details all over the place. An empty wine bottle in the corner, little holes in the dirt where seeds had been planted, a watering can by the edge of the stairs. There were blankets covering the edge of the hole, making it easier to sit by. Not that I would. I also noticed cigarettes, a radio, and batteries, candles everywhere, in the exposed pipes, on the floor, on boxes lined against the walls, everywhere. I tried to make sense of it. Whatever they were doing down there wasn't part of the job. Still, I had a hard time figuring out what exactly they were up to. Hello? The voice was distant, yet clear. I got the mental image of a flower bursting through concrete, something making its way through a barrier. But there was no question about it. It was coming from the safe. I think it was a woman. I'm sorry, are you new here? I leaned against one of the beams for support and fixed the flashlight on the safe. It was large, but not large enough to fit an adult woman, unless she was crammed in there. I was having a hard time seeing how a voice could come out of it, so I brought out my phone to record it. Hello, hi. Can you hear me? I caught it on tape and played it back to myself to make sure I wasn't imagining things. I saved the recording. It's a bit quiet, so I enhanced it. You can check it out for yourself if you want, but there's a lot of static. Finally, I decided to speak up. Yeah, I'm here, I said. I hear you. Oh, hi, it said. I'm sure this must all be a bit confusing. Concerning, yes, I said, not sure what to make of it. I pulled out a wicker chair from the corner of the room and sat down. I placed the flashlight on a box, keeping it fixed on the safe. I'm sure it looks quite strange, but you're free to leave at any time. I would certainly hope so. Let's try this again, it said. I'm Angela. No need to tell me your name, I already know it. I've seen a lot of people come down here for the past few days, I said. It's strange. It's mostly harmless fun, Angela said. But yes, I can see how that might be alarming. Yeah, I nodded. Not a lot of people come by construction sites to hang out. Depends. If your favorite band were playing here, you might want to go. Sure, but they're not. They could be. I leaned forward, giving the strange safe another look. I couldn't see any markings. The numbered wheel on the front looked blank. I could show you if you want, Angela said. But I need your consent. Consent to what exactly? To show you why people come to stay with me, but I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. Will it hurt? Not at all. All right then. In the blink of an eye, I felt the wind rush towards me. The brightness of the flashlight extended to a wide open sunlit afternoon. I heard a roaring engine, and I could feel the smooth texture of leather against the back of my naked legs. As I opened my eyes, I was somewhere else. It was an open highway, a sunny day, with wind rustling my hair. I was in a car, an open convertible. An old friend of mine was driving. I was in the back seat with my high school sweetheart. I could feel the condensation from an ice-cold bottle in my hand, and the warm wetness of a kiss on my cheek. A whiff of her intoxicating shampoo. This wasn't a memory. This was happening, right now. Mind if I turn up the bass? My friend called out. Don't want to listen to you make out all day. I immediately lost all reservations. I forgot about everything. I spent hours, maybe an entire day, just hanging out with my old friends. I was younger, stronger, happier, not a care in the world. Money in my pocket, a pep in my step, not a single cloud on an open sky. It wasn't just pleasant, it was beautiful, heavenly. We had drinks and dinner at a great barbecue place, found a neat motel just as we thought about calling it quits for the night. Every sensation filled me with joy. Warm kisses, cold drinks, a hug from an old friend. It bolstered me, strengthened me. Then it faded away, sand running through the fingers of my mind. And there I was, with a broken leg in a dusty, broken-up basement. I'd been gone no more than 30 minutes, even though it felt like an entire day. Are you okay? Angela asked. I didn't know how to feel. It was strange being back, but all the sensations I'd experienced still burned in me. I could feel it in my skin, in my mind. It was amazing. I think I'm good, I said. I don't know what to say. I suppose you want an explanation. Yeah, that'd be great. For the next hour or so, Angela told me a story. Back in the day, that safe was just a peculiar thing. It was made back in the times of the Old West, and they'd cast it from a strange metal they'd found in a drained lake. It was supposed to be used as part of a bank vault, but they noticed the money inside would be slightly changed. At first, it had just changed the value printed on the bills, but over time the changes would become more drastic. Some money would be turned into flowers, silver would turn to glass. There were seemingly no rules, except that things would change. So, in one of many grueling cruelties of the Old West, someone decided to stick a child in there. Hence, Angela. Ever since, the safe has been closed. Not even Angela can open it. She grew up in a space where there was no need for nourishment, sleep, or breathing. All she knew was the darkness of that alien box, keeping her in some kind of suspended animation. I've dreamt about the outside, she said. I've dreamt about it for so long. Can't we just let you out? It won't open. It can't. And even if it did, I'm pretty sure that'd kill me. So you're just stuck in there? Forever? It's not all bad, she said. I can go wherever, be whoever I want. The only world I've ever known is the one where you close your eyes and just live. And I can share that experience with you, my friends on the outside. I've never experienced something like that, I admitted. But this seems incredible. Shouldn't we call someone? Do something? I suppose you could, she said. Maybe the police or your landlord. Maybe a great scientist. But who's to say they won't put me somewhere bad or use me for something sinister? How do you know I won't do that? I said. I'm not better than anyone else. I'm a pretty good judge of character, said Angela, and I think the two of us will get along just fine. We chatted for another 30 minutes. Just small talk about everyday life, my job, my relationships, my dreams and hopes. She was very curious and supportive. When I finally had to leave to get some sleep, I couldn't help but long to be back. But before I left, Angela stopped me. Next time, won't you bring me something? She said. It feels good when things change. That's why they bring things here. A poster, maybe some crayons to draw on the walls. Why? I asked. The safe. It needs things to change. If they don't, it sort of lulls itself to sleep, bringing me along. So you need an offering? No, nothing like that. Nothing dramatic. Just something that changes this space, makes it look different or feel different. I'll think about it. The following day, the construction noises were back with a vengeance. Louder, seemingly random, and non-stop. They'd brought in not only concrete saws and jackhammers, but also a small wood chipper. I was exhausted from the previous night and spent most of the day just trying to keep my eyes shut. But there was something else as well. I didn't want to get up. I wanted to stay in bed and dream myself back to that impossible day. The wind in my hair, the open road, all worries so far behind we couldn't see them in the rearview mirror. The real world felt cold to me, awkward, like a cocoon wrapped around a struggling insect, yearning to fly free. That night, I skipped dinner and went straight for the basement. I was halfway out the door when I stopped to consider Angela's wish, that I'd bring something. I considered skipping it, but there was that tiny part of me that feared that if I did, she might not show me that magical space again. But if I did, I was subjecting myself to her wish. Then again, it was up to me. I could make my own choices. I decided to bring her an empty flower pot. The plant in it had long since died, and I didn't have a use for it anyway. She seemed to like flowers and dirt, so why the hell not? But the basement door was already open. This time, I wasn't alone. There were 2 repairmen down there, along with 3 random strangers. All the candles were lit, casting a warm light across the room, making the shadows dance on the walls. They were all lying on the floor, some inside the pit with the safe, others on the concrete floor. They looked like they were sleeping, twitching, grunting a word every now and then. Little chuckles, sighs of relaxation, like the strangest slumber party I'd ever seen. The wicker chair I'd sat in the previous night was waiting for me. I'm glad you came back, said Angela. Thank you for the gift. I figured you'd like it, seeing as you have potting soil and all that. I looked around. Standing among these restless strangers felt wrong. They looked too happy, too content. I felt like the only sober guy at a party. Why do you do this? I asked. What's in it for you? I get to live it with you, Angela said, and I can't do it alone. But what's the point? I asked. It's all fake. What's the point of any experience in the end? She asked. It all goes away with us. Sure, but with that point of view, nothing matters. So let's make the best of it while we can. Wait. The blink of an eye, a sunset beach on a tropical island, palm trees swaying in a warm breeze, children playing in the water, distant strumming on a guitar, and the thumping bass of a party. freshly cut honeydew melon on a platter to my right, and an entire night of possibilities ahead of me. "Angela," I said out loud, we should talk about this." I knew I wasn't really there. That strange sensation in my stomach was still bothering me, telling me that this was all wrong, unnatural. But being there, in that moment, I couldn't discern it from reality. This was Angela's dream for me, and she wanted me to be happy. I was already there. Why shouldn't I indulge? Over the next few days, I started to get to know the other people going down there. Some were part of the construction crew, others were their friends and family. Some went down to spend time with people that had passed. Others were living out dreams of long-lost love or missed opportunities. This one guy was obsessed with a TV show, and Angela helped him live out his dream of being part of the cast. There were about 12 people overall, and I got to know some of them pretty well. The amount of time we spent with Angela changed from day to day. Some experiences could last for days on end, while only spending hours in the real world. My longest time was about 3 days, while only taking about 2 hours of real time. I was the VIP on a Caribbean cruise, being pinballed between an open bar, smiling faces, and never-ending comfort. And once I stepped out, the others were there for the come-down. We shared our experiences, had a few cups of coffee, and went on with our day. Some wouldn't leave though, some would stay there. I lost track of time, overall. I missed doctor's appointments, checkups, follow-ups, all of it. I stopped taking calls, and I forgot to give my friend money for groceries. I started having trouble discerning my real needs from the comfort of dreaming. I only ate and slept because my come-downs would get worse if I didn't. That moment where you come back to your body can be devastating if you're hungry, tired, and thirsty. That's why some brought wine. It was easier to come back if you were a bit buzzed. I was involved with this group for about 4 weeks in total. It felt like a lot longer, since every time we went along with Angela would feel like a day, or several, in and of itself. I went on countless adventures, to the point where I started to dissociate with my body. I'd forget about all my needs and wants, like, what's the point of changing your shirt if you're only going to be awake in this body for another 6 hours or so? It kind of felt like putting on a 3-piece suit before heading to bed. Now my leg was still broken. I had people come by to help me downstairs, and the lot of us had fixed up that space pretty well. We'd hung lights along the walls, colored the concrete floor with crayons, and watered the sprouting flowers growing from the pots and soil. I don't quite know what they were supposed to be, but it was called Helianthus cerulea. Apparently, it was Angela's favorite. We'd made that space our own. Then there was that one night. There were 26 of us in total, all gathered in that basement. I sat in my wicker chair. Others were spread out all across the room. There was this sense of anticipation in the air, like charged static. We could feel tonight was going to be special. And finally her voice came through. "Oh, isn't this something?" laughed Angela. "So many friends. Thank you for this confidence. I don't deserve you." Some laughed, some just smiled. There was a young couple leaning against one another in the corner, raising a drink towards the safe. Good vibes all around. "Tonight I want to meet you all, there on the other side. Is that okay with you?" A cheer rose from the crowd. Of course it was okay. We loved Angela. We were dying to see her. "You're all too kind. Sweet dreams, my loves." As I exhaled and closed my eyes, something unfamiliar blanketed my mind. And when I opened my eyes, I was somewhere I'd never been before. I was looking down at my naked feet, buried into black sand. My legs were glazed with the light from a red sun setting over a white horizon. A dark, endless ocean spread out in front of me. The others were there as well. Some looked younger or healthier, but we were all there. Our best selves, relieved of worry and pain. "It's different," someone said. "We're really here. We're all really here." Some cheered. A couple of girls were dancing by the water. The young couple was making out, rolling around in the sand. I just stood there, taking in the magnificent view. Closing my eyes, my real life felt like the dream. This was the actual me, dreaming that I was a miserable office drone with a broken leg. A hand brushed against my shoulder. "I'm glad you're here," Angela whispered. I looked up at her. Angela was 7 feet tall. It's hard to describe her. She was sort of devoid of color. Not white, not black, just uncolored. No hair, no scars. Neither man nor woman. She looked like a quasi-person who hadn't yet decided on what to be. She had no facial expression. Her eyes had no color. And the strangest detail was her hands. She had no fingernails. I could imagine her looking down on me with benevolence, but at that moment there was nothing. No matter what I imagined, I could tell there was nothing there. She gave me a pat on the back and turned to the others. "Tonight you don't have to leave," she said. "You can stay as long as you want. You can go wherever you want. You can go together, alone, or as a group. There are no restrictions. Your generous gifts and your confidence in me have realized my full potential." She dove into the water. We followed her. Others crowded ahead of me, eager to follow her into the deep. I lagged behind. "Let's go for a swim together," she said, "to distant shores and untold lands beyond." My leg hurt. There was this uncomfortable nerve pinch shooting up the side of my body. I looked down. I could feel the water pooling around my feet. I was perfectly fine, but I could still feel the pain, the real pain. Looking back up, some people were gone. I tried to find the young couple, the girls who'd been playing by the water. Counting heads, I only saw 19 of us. Had some of them gone ahead? As I scanned the surface, I saw a head dip under the water. They didn't come back up. One by one, people started to doubt. Some looked at one another, unsure of what to do. Angela, who was the furthest out, urged us to hurry. "Come then," she laughed. "It's not that far." I saw a man ahead of me have a change of heart. He turned to head back to shore. He met my gaze for a second, and in the blink of an eye, he was pulled under. Panic. We fled back to shore. I saw something moving in the waves. Some who dipped down came back up, screaming for help. Others just screeched like wounded animals. A cacophony of horrible realizations came at me all at once. "Let go of me, let go!" one screamed. It's got me, please, please no." As soon as something cold touched my toe, I flinched, and for a moment the spell was broken. I was back in the real world, standing at the edge of the concrete hole. Everyone else had jumped in. Some were having seizures in the dirt, others had stopped breathing. I saw a young man with a broken neck. I had been putting weight on my wounded leg, which had distracted me from jumping in myself. I'd been compelled, but that tiny bit of pain had kept me grounded. The safe was slightly ajar, and something was emerging from within. Then I was back on that beach. White algae were spreading across the black sand like sickly veins. I saw one man being dragged into the deep, no matter how hard he dug his hands into the sand. There were only a few of us left. "Just a little further," said Angela. "You're almost there." Her voice boomed across the horizon. I tried to run, but I couldn't. My leg hurt too much. But I clung to that pain. I let it radiate through me. I listened to it, and I let it pull me back to what was actually happening. Reality. That spiking ache enveloped me, and I opened my tired eyes. Something let go of my arm as I pulled my way back from the edge of the hole. There were only a handful of bodies left. A colorless arm emerged from the safe, grabbing a middle-aged man by the leg. It started pulling him back. "It's not too late," said Angela, her voice much clearer now. "You can still come with us." "What the fuck are you doing to these people?" I asked. "What is this?" "They're coming with me," she said. "We're going away." "You're killing them. You're killing us. With your consent." The body of the middle-aged man snapped and twitched as it was forced into the safe. It reminded me of a snake with an unhinged jaw, devouring its prey whole. Something grabbed my healthy leg and pulled me forward. I tumbled into the pit, right next to the safe. From there, in that angle, it looked enormous. My heart pounded, trying to leap out of my chest. This wasn't a well-meaning dream fairy. This was a goddamned predator. I don't want this. You said you did. You don't have my consent. I say no. No. You don't want this? No. I want to go. Right now. There was a moment of consideration. The safe was left slightly ajar. Angela took a deep breath. I'll make you want this. The next part is hard to talk about. In the blink of an eye, I was in a scorching desert. I was chased by rabid beasts, longing to rip me apart. They seemed to get closer and closer the faster I ran, and the sand dunes went higher and higher. Sweat stung my eyes and my lungs were aching from exhaustion. In a way, I knew I could give up. I could give in. I could take Angela's hand and walk peacefully into the unknown. But the beasts caught up to me, and mouthful by bloody mouthful they started tearing me apart, leaving my body broken and exposed in the sand. My throat struggling to breathe. I could feel myself slipping in and out of consciousness. Tell me when you're ready to go, Angela whispered, brushing my hair. Just take my hand. I wanted to, but I could still feel my broken leg. This wasn't real. Over what felt like weeks, maybe months, I was tortured. I was shot, drowned, eaten, burned, dismembered. All of it. The worst was when she put me someplace where I knew it'd happen eventually, but not immediately, or when it could happen at any time. But I didn't know when. I had everything I loved destroyed in front of me. Every dream turned nightmare. I was back in that car, with the wind rushing through my hair, and my high school sweetheart punctured my eyes with her teeth. I was eaten alive by family and friends. I was buried alive, hearing people dance on my grave through rotting ears. All my screams went unheard, and all my tears meant nothing. This would never end. This would never stop. A never-ending parade of misery, and no matter how much I screamed, cried, or begged, it didn't matter. I had to submit. I had to give her my consent. I had to, or this would keep going. But I held on to my pain. The real pain. I knew that somewhere out there was the actual world, with real horrors and real experiences, where dreams were just dreams. At some point, I woke up in an ambulance, an oxygen mask chafing against my nose. I could smell blood. I couldn't move my arms, and there was a strange tingle in my fingertips, a deafening siren pounding my ears. "He's coming too," someone called out. "Sir, sir." I remember looking into the eyes of a young man standing next to me. He was trying to check my pulse. "My leg," I said. "It hurts. It really, really hurts." And it did. It really did hurt, for real. One of the other contractors had been wondering what was going on. People had stopped answering his calls. He'd come around to check on the place only to find me, alone, unconscious in the basement. He'd called an ambulance. Apparently, he didn't stay long enough to listen to Angela. Or maybe she was busy talking to me. They pulled me out and took me to the hospital. I fell in and out of consciousness all the way through. Meanwhile, repairs resumed. The first thing they did was fill in the floor. No one told me what happened to the safe. As it turns out, I was in Angela's world for 3 actual days. There were some inquiries about people going missing, but apparently it isn't as uncommon as one would think. My episode was attributed to an overdose on painkillers. The others, well, there wasn't one single explanation. I tried talking to people about it, but it was hard to make them listen. I'm writing this to remind myself that what I experienced was real. I can't talk to anyone about it, since anyone involved is, well, gone. I've since moved to an apartment instead, and my leg is all better. And the further I get from that day, that summer, the more it feels like an impossibility. But I know it happened. I know it did. I think what saved me in the end was getting away from that place. But still, in my heart of hearts, I have to admit, I want to go back. Maybe if I'd followed her, everything would have been okay. And maybe it wouldn't be.